Om Sadashiva-Samarambham
Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam
Vande Guru
Vande Guru
Parampara.
Parampara.
Om
Om
Sahana
Sahana
Bhavatu
Bhavatu Sahanau
Sahanau
Bhunaktu
Sahaviryam Karvavahai
Sahaviryam Karavavahai
Tejasvinavadhitamastु Vidvishavahai.
Vidvishavai.
Om Shanti
Om
Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. So we will continue with where we left off. We are in the 6th verse, so we will chant that. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Sanyasastu Mahabaho
Sanyasastu Mahabaho
Dukkham Aptuma Yogataha
Dukkam Aptayogataha
Yoga Yukto Munir Brahma
Yoga Yukto
Nachirena Digachati. Okay. So, He Mahabaho, Ayogataha tu sanyasaha dukkham aptum, full stop. Yoga yuktaha munihi nachirena brahma adhigachati, full stop. So, He Mahabaho, O Arjuna, tu, but, whereas, Ayogataha, the one who is not qualified, who has not followed karma yoga, for him, sannyasaha dukkham aptum. For him, sannyasa is difficult to accomplish. While, on the other hand, yoga yuktaha, the one who has passed through karma yoga and upasana yoga, who is he? Munihi. He is the one who is contemplative, the one who is able to focus. For him, nachirena brahma adhigachati. He will attain Brahman na achirena, in no time at all. He will attain Brahman very quickly. So in short, hey Arjuna, sannyasa is difficult if you have not done karma yoga. But if you are a qualified person who has passed through karma yoga, upasana yoga, you will attain Brahman before very long. Now what you have to note is that in sloka 2, Krishna had said that karma yoga is better than sannyasa. While in sloka 5, he said that sannyasa is better, right? So there's total contradiction. And therefore there is a possibility that there is confusion in Arjuna's mind. So why the confusion? If you remember the discussions, a lot technical it is, the two slokas are talking about sannyasa in two different contexts, and that we must never forget, because the sloka itself doesn't say, but the explanations we talked about. Sloka 2, sannyasa was vivadisha sannyasa. Sannyasa meant for getting into jnanam and following jnanam without any disturbances. But sloka 5, the 5th verse, sannyasa is vidvat sannyasa. Sannyasa taken after jnanam, because you see the futility of any karma. And therefore, when Krishna says that karma yoga is better, he says, he means that in connection with the verse number 2, with sloka number 2, where sannyasa was vividisha sannyasa, between vividisha sannyasa and karma yoga is better. And in sloka 5, where sannyasa was vidvat sannyasa, between vidvat sannyasa and karma yoga, vidvat sannyasa is better. So this understanding is very, very important. Otherwise, the two slokas together can be very confusing. So what does it mean When you say between Vidisha and Karma Yoga is better. And when you say between Vidvat and Karma Yoga, Vidvat is better. What are we talking about? We are talking about the preparation of the mind in the two cases. And if you have to decide which of these two statements are going to be applicable to you, you have to see the individual context. So Krishna is saying, for a prepared mind, vidvat sannyasa, that is for a mind which is prepared, for him, sannyasa ashrama is wonderful. And therefore, between vidvat sannyasa and karma yoga, vidvat is better. Whereas for an unprepared mind, which is sloka number 2, sannyasa ashrama is not better. Karma yoga is better. Why? Because of the non-preparedness of the mind, the immaturity of the mind. A sannyasi's life can appear very lonely. And therefore, he says, between Vividisha Sannyasa and Karma Yoga is better. Do not take sannyasa if your mind is not prepared. Because people can miss companionship at any stage. If your mind is not prepared, even if you're 80 years old, there are examples of people getting married at 85. Okay. Why? What is the purpose? Companionship. Because as you grow more and more old, if your mind is not prepared, you can grow more and more lonely, and that can lead to tremendous depression. So for the prepared mind, the silence, any silence can be taken as the silence of the ashrama. So for a mind who's prepared, if he's in total silence, he will say, wow, this silence is like the silence in an ashram. While for the unprepared mind, that same silence, he will say, oh, this is like the silence of a cremation ground. And therefore, to enjoy sannyasa ashrama, you require a preparation of mind, and that preparation not easy. It requires a lot of effort. Therefore, Krishna says, He Mahabaho, Sannyasaha Dukkham Aptumaha. So, what does this sannyasa mean is the question. Vivadisha or Vidvat. So, earlier, sannyasa was used in the meaning of Vividisha, but here Shankaracharya says, in this particular verse, in the sloka, you have to understand sannyasa as Vidvat sannyasa. In our language, binary format. What is binary format? What are the binary means two, right? So what are the two things in binary format?
Ishvara and Jiva.
Nope, that is triangular format.
Ishvara and Jagat.
That is also triangular format.
Jagat. Aham Brahmasmi, I think.
Binary is Jiva and Jagat.
And Jagat.
Jiva and Jagat is triangular format.
Me Brahman.
I, the
and
Ishvara.
Brahman and Jagat. As in, I am Brahman and Jagat.
Triangular format is Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. You are the Jiva, you are living in a Jagat, and there is Ishvara who is the creator and has created all your problems. So that is triangular format. Binary format is only two, Atma, Anatma. Remember that. Binary format means Atma, Anatma. This definition you must remember because we are going to use this a lot, binary and triangular. Okay. So when we are saying that it is Vidvat Sannyasa, in that is a prepared mind, which means he's understood that there is Atma and there is Anatma. Binary format only. And therefore it's important for us to be told about these things because Krishna doesn't say, most commentators don't talk about it, and therefore Shankara, of course, is very clear. Shankara is a very big boon while you're studying the Gita. Enjoying Vidvat Sannyasa's way of life is not easy, right? Because going from Grahastha to Sannyasa, most people do that to escape problems. It doesn't work. So everything is fine if, and then when everything is going fine for you, and then you take sannyasa, that is sannyasa out of maturity. Because you have understood that you are Atma and the world is Anatma. But the moment you run away from your problems and you quit, then there is a problem because that is sannyasa will be very difficult for you. And therefore Krishna says ayogataha, the mind which is not yogya. Ayoga means not yogya. So whereas for Yoga Yukta Munihi, the one who is a contemplative person, who has learned to be alone but not lonely, very important. You can be alone, but you should not be lonely. Loneliness is destructive. Being alone is a spiritual virtue. So you can be alone but not lonely. Such a person is a Munihi. And they say Maunat Munihi, the one who enjoys Maunam, the one who enjoys silence, he's a Munihi. He loves seclusion. And for that, he has to be what? Yogataha. He must have practiced karma and upasana. And if he has, there are many people who you find have become Vidvat sannyasis without this. But then you have to understand that in this janma, if he has not practiced, in the previous janma, he must have. Otherwise, the required level of Chitta Shuddhi would not be there. And thus, this person who has got the required level of Chitta Shuddhi, who has got Jnana Yogyata, he can become a Vidvat sannyasi. He can remain in the binary format all the time. Such a person, Brahma Adigachati, will definitely attain Brahman when Nachirena, not after a long time, in a very short time. Okay, any questions? I asked somebody asking something.
Hello, Om sir. So
Yeah.
in the triangular format, the Vivadish sannyasi.
Yes. Vivadisha literally means with a desire to get Vidya. So with the desire to get Atmajnanam. So you are a Ajnani. Okay. Now we look at the next verse, verse number 7. We will chant. Yoga Yukto Vishuddh Atma
Yoga Yukto
Yukto
Vishuddhatma
Vishuddhatma
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha
Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma
Kurvannapi na lipyate.
Kurvan
Vannapinalipte
yoga.
Okay. So Yoga Yuktaha Vishuddha Atma Vijita Atma Jita Indriyaha Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Apina Lipyate. This is the Anvaya. So Yoga Yuktaha, the one who has been prepared by Karma Yoga, the one with Chitta Shuddhi. So Yoga Yuktaha, and then he gives an adjective. Atma Vishuddha, Vishuddha Atma, purified mind. Vijita Atma. You remember, we'll explain more detail. Atma is having different meaning in each of these sections. Vishuddha Atma is purified mind. Vijita Atma, disciplined body. Jitendriyaha, mastered the senses. Sarva Bhutaha, Bhutatma. So the second Bhutatma means who is the very essence of Sarva Bhutaha, of all beings. For him, Kurvanapi Nalipyate, even though he is performing actions, he is not affected by those actions. So let us look at it in more detail. And with the last verse, the 6th verse, the Nishtha topic has been concluded. What is the Nishtha topic? What does Nishtha mean?
The lifestyle.
The lifestyles. The the lifestyles were the lifestyle of a Grahastha, the lifestyle of a sannyasi. Those have been concluded. And from this sloka onwards, Krishna is saying, lifestyles are fine. You can choose between the lifestyles, but the sadhanas, there is no choice. Whether you are a Grahastha or whether you are a sannyasi, the same sadhana has to be followed by you. And therefore, this sloka talks about the sadhanas, which everyone has to practice. There is no choice there. There is no option at all. Grihastha must also go through all these sadhanas. Sannyasi must also go through all these sadhanas. So sadhana is an English word, okay? The correct Sanskrit terminology is sadhanani. But We are mixing, so it's all right. Sadhanas, I say. You understand it as sadhanani. But don't go and tell anybody sadhanas, they'll laugh at you and at me. Okay, so the sadhanani means plural of sadhanas. So yoga yuktaha. Now Krishna is setting out very nicely the journey. Yoga yuktaha means karma yoga yuktaha. One should become a karma yogi. How? Care of chapter 3. Karma yogi is a person who has managed to balance his worldly life and spiritual life. He balances his materialistic goals and his spiritual goals. So Karma Yogi is the one who does not spend dawn to dusk in only earning money. He realizes that there is a spiritual objective in his life also. So while he does not give up material benefits, material pursuits, material objectives, he balances his life. So he finds time for the Panchamahayagnyas. He finds time for some study also, for chanting also. He balances his life. So he works for material benefits also, but for him, life is not just artha kama pradhana. It is not only for artha and kama. He also has dharma and moksha as the objectives. So in the beginning of your spiritual journey as a grahastha, you have a lot of responsibilities, and therefore you may spend more of your time in artha kama and less in dharma moksha. But as you grow older, as your, the demands for earning money becomes less because you're already accumulating some amount of wealth, slowly this proportion has to change. So from spending more time in artha kama earlier and less in dharma moksha, this has to change to more and more dharma moksha and less artha kama. And in the very last stage of your life, the dominant pursuit should be spirituality only. And that is why brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. You decide what is it supposed to be done. And remember that whether physically you go through all these ashramas, brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa, whether physically you go through these ashramas or not, doesn't matter. Psychologically, you must definitely go through all the ashramas. And therefore, you have to work in that direction. But your work alone is not sufficient. Your karma alone is not sufficient. You need Ishvara's grace also. And therefore, you say, Urvaru kamiva bandhana mrityor mokshiya mahamrita. This conversion is referred to here as yoga yuktaha, giving importance to inner growth. Starting with material benefits is okay, but slowly that proportion has to change and the dominance has to become inner growth. So what you are has to become more important than what you have. Very important piece of advice which Krishna gives. Remember that what you have is not as important as what you are. What you have, you will leave it behind. You will leave behind when you go, but what you are will remain. And therefore, because of this karma yoga and upasana yoga, the karma yogi will gradually become the next word, Vishuddha Atma. Will get a purer mind. So because he understood that any dependence is a problem, because the object of dependence can go away. And therefore, dependence itself, whether it be on your family members or on the objects around you or on the money or the position, any dependence is samsara. And therefore, he has understood that independence is moksha. And therefore, he works for independence from the pull of ragadvesha. And this is called vairagyam. So, Vishuddha Atmatvam is vairagyam. Because raga is a impurity. Vishuddha Atma means raga rahita Atma. Raga rahita antakaranam. So here Atma, Shankara says, means antakaranam, the mind. So Vishuddha antakaranam means antakaranam which is free from raga. Right? Remember that Krishna has also said, Indriyasya indriyasyarthe raga dvaisho vyavastitau. Raga dvaisha is constantly present. And therefore, Krishna does not mean the raga dvesha has to be eliminated, right? So when you say Vishuddha Atma, all these are very important technical points which we have to understand. Vishuddha Atma on the face of it means what? Atma, that is Antakaranam, mind without Ragadvesha. Purified mind without Ragadvesha. But you have to connect it to what Krishna said earlier. Indriyasya indriyasyarthe raga dvaisha vyavasthitao. Raga and dvaisha are constantly present in every object that you interact with. And therefore they cannot be eliminated. What can be done? Tayorna vashama gachet. Now here's the paripanthe now. Should not, your karma, your actions should not be decided by raga dvaisha. This is the mastery. Raga dvaisha will be present everywhere. In your mind, it is there all the time. But I have to choose whether my karma, my actions, my responses to any situation are being decided by the Ragadvesha or are decided in spite of the Ragadvesha because of what the situation reveals to me as the correct action to be done. This control over the mind, niyatam karma kurutvam, where I should do what I have to do, uninfluenced by the presence of the Ragadvesha in my mind. This condition of the mind is what Krishna is calling Vishuddha Atma. So that is the second one. After having become Vishuddha Atma, what should you do? Vijita Atma Jitendriya. So Shankara says, note that in Vishuddha Atma, Atma means mind, but in Vijita Atma, Atma means body. Okay, so these things you have to clearly understand. Vijita Atma means body over here. Vishuddha Atma means mind over there. And Jitendriya means one who has mastered the sense organs. Now, of course, you know the original meaning of Atma, right? Satchitananda. This meaning is not to be used here. Vijitatma means one who has mastered the body. Jitendriya means one who has mastered the sense organs. Vijitatma with Jitendriya means one who has mastered the body and the sense organs. Effectively meaning one who has mastered of himself. Because you have to also bring forward Vishuddhatma. And when you put them all together, Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, Jitendriyaha, you have mastered the mind, you have mastered the body, and you have mastered the sense organs. BMSC has been mastered. Body, mind, sense organ complex, you have mastered. Therefore, you are a master of yourself. And when we say Vijitatma, of course, Shankara says, it means Vijita Deha, mastery of the body. What is the sadhana for mastery of the body? We have to pull this out from somewhere else. What is the sadhana for mastery of the body? Everything that you study,
Mind sadhana.
Sense organs.
I'm saying mastery of the body.
Asana.
Yeah, so Ashtanga Yoga basically, you pull it out from
Yoga.
Patanjali. Yoga Sutras, you pull it out because we accept that Yoga Sutras, the discipline that they have prescribed is very good for us. We accept that, though we reject the philosophy. So from Yoga Sutras, you pull out Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is for mastery of the body. And therefore, the Karma Yoga here acquires additional meaning. Yogasanas are also Karma Yoga. So therefore, traditionally, a Karma Yoga has to practice Hatha Yoga also. And that doesn't mean that you do all the 84 lakh asanas or even 84 of them you need not do. You can do a few of them, which you know. Make sure that you do enough to keep your body in good shape. Some practice is essential is the meaning. A fit body is necessary for a spiritual seeker because in a fit body, the mind is also easier to maintain. Jitendriyaha. So in Jitendriyaha, when you use Yoga Sutra language, what is the word? You have to jump between scriptures. If you really Pratyahara.
Angamejayatvam.
So Jitendra is Pratyahara. And in Tattvoda language, what is it?
Damaha.
Dama, right? So Jitendriya is equal to Pratyahara from the Yoga Shastras, is equal to Dama from the Tattva. So idea is you should be familiar with all these texts to some extent so that you can jump from text to text. Which is why I keep saying, if you have Tattva classes running, attend at least 7, 8 of them until such time as you are completely familiar. And what is the advantage of all this sadhana? You have got physical energy, you have got mental energy, you have got jnana yogyata, which is samadhi, shatka sampattihi. And therefore, the first line of this verse indicates a life of karma yoga and upasana, which has led to chitta shuddhi. And then after that, where do you go? You go to jnana yoga, jnana kanda. And this stage is being indicated in this verse by sarva bhutatma bhutatma. Karma yogi gets converted into a jnana yogi. The rajasic active person gets converted into a sattvic contemplative person. Now look at the word sarva bhutatma. The atma, that word has to be carefully split. Sarva bhuta atma. So the atma of sarva bhutaha, the atma of all the ghosts. Bhuta is not ghosts over here, okay? Bhuta is beings. So the atma of all beings.
All the living beings.
Sarva bhutatma, the atma of all living beings.
All living beings.
And Shankara describes it very clearly by saying sarva bhuta is sarvesham brahmadinam stamba paryantam bhutanam. Okay. Sarvesham of all brahmadinam, starting from Lord Brahmaji, stamba paryantam, up to a blade of grass. So the both are living beings, okay. You can also say non-living beings, but here because he's talking about the Atma of Sarva Bhutas, Shankara says Sarvesham Brahmadinam Stamba Paryantam Bhutanam, starting from Lord Brahmaji up to a blade of grass. It is the essence of all the living beings becomes the Sarva Bhutatma. And therefore second Bhuta means the oneness with, the Aikyam. Aikyam with Paramatma has been obtained is the meaning of Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. Means he has become a Jnani. Okay. Now that might, Shankara himself feels that, maybe this is a bit too complicated. So he says, he adds over here, Samyak Darshi iti arthaha. It means that he has become a person who has got Samyak Darshanam, means correct knowledge, which is what? He has completed Shravanam and Mananam. So Samyak Darshi is a person who has completed Shravanam and Mananam. So let us recapture this idea. The first idea is, the first stage of understanding is that I am the Atma, which is different from the body. And we saw this in the verses from 12 to 25 of chapter 2. The discrimination between Atma and Atma, understanding the differences between Atma and Atma was the subject of those 13-14 verses. So that is the first stage of understanding. And after that is done, what remains? Kurvan api na lipyate. Nidhi dhyasanam remains. The second stage of knowledge is that the consciousness behind my body is the same consciousness behind every single body in this universe, which means there is only one Atma. And the Jnana Yogi is the one who knows that I am this Atma, not only behind this body which I am occupying, but all the bodies which I am occupying, I am that one Atma only. So I am not only behind this Shariram, but I am behind all Sharirams, Sarva Bhutaha, all Sharirams. What is the benefit of this knowledge? The Jnana Phalam is, benefit is detachment from the body. The sense of no longer being obsessed by the body, freedom from Deha Abhimana, which is a very, very powerful thing. Deha Abhimana is one of the instinctive, attachments that we have. And I'm saying that I am the body. Tomorrow morning, I may say I am not the body. But whenever you are asked about yourself, who are you? What do you say? You describe yourself only from the standpoint of view of the body. So therefore, our entire life has been instinctively governed by this body attachment, by this Deha Abhimanam. What does this knowledge do? Because of this knowledge, I learned to look at myself as the consciousness principle functioning through the body. But I am not the body itself. I am the consciousness principle which is functioning because of the body, through the body. And therefore, Deha Abhimana renunciation, Deha Abhimana Tyagaha, renunciation of identification with the body will automatically lead toward karma abhivana tyagaha. Renunciation of karma, attachment to the karma. Why? Because all karmas belong to the deha alone, belong to the body alone. Therefore, when I am no longer attached to the body, I am no longer attached to the karma, I don't think I am doing anything. All karmas belong to the body alone. And remember, all our problems in life have as their basis these two abhimanas, body abhimana and abhimanam with the properties of the body like karma, etc. And the entire Vedantic study is aimed at dismissing this abhimanam, both these abhimanam. And therefore Krishna says, he is not tainted by any action. Na kurvannapi lipyate. He is not tainted by any action. He does not identify with any action, even when the body is doing the action. It's like you are traveling in a car, right? The car is going at 100 kilometers per hour, but are you panting for breath? No. Therefore, even when this person does Panchamahayajna, he is na lipyate, not associated with the Panchamahayajna. He does not claim that he is doing the ritual. He does not claim that I am doing the ritual for purifying my body and my mind. He does not say, I am a sadhaka. And that's why Prakritehe kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. If you remember verse number 27 from chapter 3, the one who identifies with the body and becomes a karmi and consequently a bhokta also. Therefore, Krishna says, ahankara vimudatma. Yes, he is a foolish person who has identified himself with his body and his mind, and therefore he is doing karma. On the other hand, what about a wise person? Tattavittu mahabhaho guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante yati matva nasajjate. He is able to see his own body as another part of creation, like any other object. So I look upon several bodies as part of creation, right? Whenever I see the obituary column in the papers, I don't know most of them, so it's total detachment. And I say very wisely, all bodies are subject to arrival and departure. So we are all very great philosophers when it comes to other people's bodies. Why? Because objectivity is there. And when you are objective, you accept the laws of nature. Objectivity leads to the acceptance of the law of karma, of the law of Easwara. While in respect of your own body, there is subjectivity because you are interested. There is deha abhimanam. And that subjectivity leads to resentment, protest, anger. You are protesting against the law of God, remember that. But Jnani, he does not have any subjectivity with regard to his own body because he views this as any other body. And therefore, for him, the law of the Lord, the law of karma is very easily assimilated. And he knows this body is born. Asti jayate, vardate, viparanimate, apakshiyate, vinashyati. This understanding in respect of his own body, this is detachment. And therefore, na lipyate. He is not affected. And Shankara gives the definition of what we call the remaining in the binary format. So, tatra eva vartamanaha, he says, remaining in that state. Which state? Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. Knowing that he is the Atma behind all the bodies. And he keeps remembering that all the time. He keeps that knowledge in his mind all the time. I am Atma and not the Karta Bhokta body. And therefore, for him, there is no sadhana, there is no karma. When what does he do? He works for the welfare of others. But even while doing so, even while working for everybody else's welfare, na lipyate, he is not bound, he is not affected. And this idea is expanded in the next two verses also. Okay, before we go on to the next two verses, any questions?
Sir, here the stages for preparedness for sannyasa are being described. The first is pure Vishuddhatma.
Okay.
And then Jitendriya. And
I don't think they're talking about the preparatory stages.
He's state about the sadhanas.
This is the, when you say that, you have to take it as a sadhana, but when he says Vishuddha Atma, he means the mind is already purified. So that understanding is, see, he's talking about the person who has the transformation which has taken place. And therefore you have to understand that that sadhana is important for us to convert the mind into Vishuddhatma.
So first is the mind.
Not
And then
necessarily. You can have the body also. In fact, it is not correct to go around, putting a sequence to that.
Okay.
Can you really, work on the mind without working on the body? You can't, because
No.
the body which is unhappy or in pain, you will not be able to work on the mind.
So
So
all,
just accept them as all are
everything.
there. Yeah, don't try to get into a sequence.
Om
So that's why
Acharya.
sorry.
Yes,
Boliye,
Bindu ji,
boliye.
boliye.
Acharya ji, could you please once more explain the nature of a purified mind? We keep on talking of a pure mind. We are talking of sadhan chatushtaya. We are talking of raga, dvesha, still being there and knowing that we are not to be affected by it and taking decisions according to scripture. But what exactly, when we speak of a purified mind, what are the qualities or the nature of a purified mind?
That's given by the FIR concept, isn't it? Frequency of disturbance is less, intensity is less, recovery time is quick.
But a completely purified mind, would be
There
that
is no such
everything
thing as
would
a
be zero?
completely purified mind. 100% purified mind is not possible. Because mind always has ragadvesha. Krishna himself says that.
That is what I wanted to
Yes.
clarify.
You will never have a 100% purified mind. That 100% purified mind, it's a figurative aspect of a jnani, because he is not identified with the mind at all.
Okay. And when we are speaking of a purified mind, what is the role of the role of jnanam or vividisha sannyasa? Like you mentioned that compared to karma yoga and vividisha sannyasa, karma yoga is a better place, because in the worldly affairs also one can get the jnanam by shravanam and mananam. So the purification of the mind, when we say chitta shuddhi and purification of mind, so this is a continuous process through the jnanam also.
What is
Because
jnanam?
without jnanam, without shravanam and without mananam, without understanding about atma and atma, one cannot proceed. One always will remain in raga and dvesha only. So without that knowledge, this understanding cannot happen, that one should not be affected by raga dvesha, and it will continue in the mind, like you have.
There is a big difference between saying that there is ragadvesha in my mind and taking decisions based on that ragadvesha.
Okay.
Never think that having ragadvesha in your mind is a problem. The problem is only when you work on the basis of a ragadvesha. That is what Krishna is saying. Tayorna vashama gacche, chapter 3. Do not fall under the influence. That's why I give that line. Indriyasyarthe, indriyasartheshu. Every action, every movement of yours, ragadvesha is present. What you have to do is tayoho navashama gachet. Do not take your decisions based on that ragadvesha. That is called transcending ragadvesha, not having ragadvesha. Ragadvesha will always be there because your mind is composed of what? It's prakriti. Prakriti, sattva, rajas, tamas. You will always have ragadvesha.
Okay.
That's very important to understand. When you say a person has no ragadvesha, it doesn't mean that ragadvesha is not present in his mind. If correct understanding of the statement is that ragadvesha does not influence his actions.
And all actions are taken on the basis of Dharma Shastra and the study of scriptures.
Yes,
Based
Dharma
on
Shastra alone. What is correct? Remember, Dharma Shastra will not tell you in every situation. So you have to ask yourself that if I do this, and if somebody did this to me, would I like it or not? If I would not like somebody doing that action to me, then it's an extension of my understanding to say that I should not do that action to anybody else.
Right. Thank you.
So Acharya ji, earlier in the morning while doing the 18th chapter, we came across a similar word Jitatma, where I think it meant the Antahkaran, the
Yes.
purified Antahkaran.
Yes.
So
That is
here,
why, that is why Shankara is important. In each
okay,
line, in each chapter, in this one line itself, Atma has 3 different meanings.
So in this line itself, in this verse itself,
There are
Atma has
two
two
different
different
meanings.
meanings.
Yeah. So that's why that notation is important. Atma basically means me, I. But in these sentences, they have different meanings. And that is why just reading the scripture can make you thoroughly confused. You have to
So
have
Vishuddhatma, the Atma means the mind.
the mind.
And then there is Atma means sense organs, Jitendriya. Then Vijitatma is mind, Atma means
Deha.
body.
Body. Jitendriya, there is no Atma. It's very clear. Jita Indriya. Sense organs.
So-
There are
so
two meanings,
this-
mind and body over here.
Okay, so Atma is in the Vijitatma is mind and body both. No, sorry,
No.
body
Vishuddhatma is
and
mind, Vijitatma is body.
body.
Jitendriya, sense organs. So therefore, you add 3 of them together, Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya. You get master of the body, mind, and sense organs.
Okay, mind, body, mind, and sense organs. And Bhutatma is who's gone beyond selfish,
No,
self-conscious.
don't use those terms at all. Okay, don't use these kind of terms. Bhutatma, Sarvabhuta Bhutatma. The last Atma means that he is the essence of Sarvabhutam. He is the very consciousness principle behind all living organisms.
Okay, very conscious. It's not master. Okay.
And
So,
therefore, you have to again and wherever you think you're confused, go over the lecture again, write, make notes, revise those notes, because without that, it's impossible to understand these words. हाँ
So-
गार्गी जी बोलिए.
so na kurvan and na lipyate means that sthita pragna, what we have studied, is it applicable here?
Yes, he is working for others, but he is not affected by those actions. He doesn't take it personally. For him, those actions are not desire-bound actions. They are not binding actions. He will be happy whether he is doing, and he'll be happy if he is not doing also.
Ravi ji, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
How can you be objective towards your body when we are sick? That's the biggest challenge. You get a small headache and all our knowledge, everything goes out to the window. Especially
can you be
when one
objective?
is diagnosed with a terminal illness or something, like you or
Then
your family member.
your understanding is then that I am the body. That is the problem. If your understanding is I am the body, you'll be very disturbed. If your understanding is I am the mind, I am this consciousness which will survive the body, then what is there to be disturbed about?
But the pain is there, no, sir.
Physical pain is part of Samanya Prarabdha. It is there. Even the Jnani will have physical pain. What the Jnani will not have is the emotional pain.
Mhm.
Don't think that the Jnani will suddenly become free of all pain. I mean, too many movies that show that. Once you're a Jnani, you are free of all pain. Physical pain is
Yeah.
going to be there. That is Samanya Prarabdha.
Okay.
The Vishesha Prarabdha is this emotional pain that you get. Vishesha Prarabdha is what the Jnani does not have.
Okay.
Right? Even if the body is dying, if your assimilation is complete, there will be no emotional pain at all because Atma survives. We saw that in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Whichever way you look at it, whether you are a Jivatma, you survive. If you are the Paramatma, also you survive. So there is no cause for sorrow.
Okay.
Asochanam sochastvam. The interpretation of those words, chapter 2, verse 11, very important. So anybody who is disturbed by this, I would suggest that you go back to verse number 11 and thoroughly study it. Yes, Lovena ji.
Acharya, in the term that we have there, it says Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. So it's twice. So the Atmas in both of them would refer to two sections, like how we earlier said the body and the mind. Here it is Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. So can you please
Sarva
clarify?
Bhutatma means the Atma of Sarva Bhutams, the Atma of the various living organisms. Sarva Bhutatma. The second Atma means I am the very Atma behind the Atma of all these organisms. So it is indicating the oneness with the consciousness. At the consciousness level, we are all one. That is the indication.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Acharya ji, I wanted to just confirm. So all these words that we've learned, Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Sarvabhutatma, Bhutatma, actually are describing Vidvat Sannyasi or
They are
Jnani.
describing a Vidvat Sannyasi, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now let us look at verse number 8 and verse number 9. So we will chant them together. And they are very difficult verses. So we will chant together. Naiva kinchit karomiti. Yukto manyeta tattvavit. Pashyan shrinman sprishan jigran. Ashnan gachan swapan shwasan. Pralapan visrajan ghannan. Unmishan nimishannapi. Indriyani indriyartheshu. Vartanta iti dharayan. Okay, that's quite a mouthful. But anyway, so take the first line. Naiva kinchit karomi iti yuktaha manyeta tatpavita. It's a very, very important verse because Krishna himself is laying down the guidelines for nididhyasanam. So it's very important for all of us. So tatpavita. Tatpavita is the one who knows the tattvam. Means the one who has gone through Shravanam and also has gone through Mananam. For him, the words of the Shastram have become a fact. So he no longer has a doubt that he is Atma. Aham Brahmasmi is not information for him. Aham Brahmasmi is a fact for him. So that person who knows Aham Brahmasmi as a fact, Tattvavita, is the Tattvavita. Manyeta, he understands. What does he understand? Na eva kinchit karomi. I do not do anything at all. Which is what? I am not ahankara karta bhokta. I have no prarabdha. So this is the translation, the transformation from the triangular format into the binary format. So Krishna is saying that move from the Ishvara Jiva Jagat format into the Atma Anatma format. Remember, binary format is not there. A word is not there which is found in the Shastram, right? Nowhere in the Shastram will you find binary format. It is something which we use to describe, but the concept is embedded in the Shastram. That you have to move from the idea that I am the Jiva born in a Jagat and Ishvara who has created me and the problems, therefore I have to run to Ishvara for worshipping and redemption. All these ideas you drop. And therefore this sloka is relevant not only for a Grahastha Jnani but also for a Sannyasa Jnani because the thought pattern is the same. Naiva kinchit karomi. I do not do anything at all. I am the Atma. I am Akarta. And therefore, even if I am scolding my children, what do you say to yourself? Naiva kinchit karomi. And the question is, when should I do that? So, when you sit for meditation, it's one way of doing it. So, but sitting for meditation, the proper posture using the Ashtanga Yoga postures It is called Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam in the form of sitting formally for meditation, samadhi. And what samadhi here is borrowed from Yoga Sutras. That is one way of doing. Should you do that? No. Krishna is saying this is a 24/7/365 activity. It is got another name. So we said that formally sitting for meditation is called Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa Nididhyasanam. This 24/7/365 activity has got another name. Brahma Abhyasa Rupa Nididhyasanam. We saw both these. If you have studied Drik, Drishya, Viveka, we are talking about both these. Therefore, keeping the teaching in the mind all the time, claiming yourself as Atma, not as Ahankara, right? So one important point here is, during the initial stages of Jnana Yoga, when I'm assuming that Chitta Shuddhi is there, Jnana Yogyata has been achieved, and now I'm coming to Jnana Yoga. So at that point of time, you are still thinking that you are the Ahankara. You are just learning. Shravanam is just beginning. So during that point, there are two ideas presented. Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti ideas are presented. That you will get Jivan Mukti, and then when the body falls, you will get Videha Mukti. So in Shastric language, Adhyarupa Kale, wherever there is Adhyarupa present, wherever superimposition is present, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti concepts are presented. But remember, that is a provisional form of moksha meant for the junior student. But now we are in chapter 5. After Adhyaropa, what has to come? Apavada has to come. The negation has to come. So Adhyaropa Kale means during the time when you accept superimposition. Apavada Kala means when that superimposition, the Adhyaropa, has to be negated. So all those concepts, including Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, have to be negated. So you have to understand that the term Jivan Mukti, and for that matter, Videha Mukti, has a meaning, is relevant only as long as I take myself to be the RC, the Ahankara. But during Nididhyasanam, what am I saying? I am rejecting the RM, the reflecting medium I am rejecting. And by reflecting the reflecting medium, I have automatically rejected the RC. So I have rejected Ahankara. And therefore, I am free from Prarabdha, because Prarabdha belongs to the RC. I am free from Prarabdha, and because I am free from Prarabdha, I was never born, I will never die. If I was never born, where is the question of being reborn? And therefore, I am free from the concept of Jivan Mukti as well as Videha Mukti. A very important point to understand. As a senior student, Jivan Mukti is dropped as a goal. Videha Mukti is eliminated from your dictionary. Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, these two words have to be cancelled from your vocabulary as a senior student. And that is why he says, Pashyan Shrinvan Sprishan Jigran Ashnan Gachan. So this Pashyan Shrinvan Sprishan Jigran Ashnan. What are they? Seeing, Pashyan, Shrinvan, hearing, Sprishan, touching, Jigran, smelling, Ashnan, tasting. What does it indicate?
Indriyas.
Indriya.
Yeah.
Pancha Jnanindriyani, right? So these are Pancha Jnanindriyas. And look at the next one. Pralapan, Visrajan, Grannan, Unmishan, Nimishan. Pralapan is talking. Visrajan is releasing. The grasp is releasing. Grannan is grasping. So Visrajan, Grannan means releasing and grasping and releasing. Unmishan, Nimishan means opening the eyes and closing the eyes. Opening the eyelids, closing the eyelids. Swapan Shwan is here. It cannot be taken as sleeping. It has to be taken as breathing in and breathing out. So all these actions will continue. There is no change in the action. Everything external is the same. Remember that literally Swapan means to sleep, but because of the context of Swashan means breathing out also. Because of that context, it has to be taken as connected. So swapan swashan means breathing inhalation and exhalation, not sleeping. Okay. And why is that so? Because the context is what? Nididhyasana. And when sleeping, nididhyasanam cannot be done in sushupti avastha. Right? Your mind has to be awake. And therefore, even if you take swapan over here, it can be taken as lying down, not sleeping. Okay. So what should you do at all these times? Naiva kinchit karomi. I do not do anything. Very interestingly, in this verse, Krishna has answered one question of Arjuna's. Do you remember the question?
His sorrow about killing everybody. That is
Nope.
personal.
No.
Huh?
How does it answer that
That-
question?
The Sita Pragnasya Kabhasha.
Sita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava. How does the jnani sit? How does he stand? What does he do? Sitadi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Where was it? Second chapter, 54th sloka. So Krishna took his own time to answer after almost 3 full chapters. So you got all of us have a notion that a jnani must be different from other people. Arjuna also had that notion. That is why he asked the question, Sita prajna se ka bhasha. What is the definition of Sita prajna? Krishna is saying that jnanam brings only a change in attitude towards life situations. And this change in the attitude, what does it do? It causes a change in your response also. Therefore, indriyani indriyartheshu, because the jnani understands that his body is made up of matter, the world is made up of matter, matter and matter will interact, nobody can escape from interaction, right? And therefore he accepts that. And therefore Krishna is saying some people, some darshanas may say that you should remove every thought from your mind and sit in nirvikalpa samadhi. But Krishna is saying, how long can you escape? Because your prarabdha karma will not allow you to sit in samadhi permanently. So what is to be done? Allow the interaction of sense organs with sense organs. When sense organs interact with sense organs, what will happen? There will be sensations. Allow the sensations to happen. They will produce joyous sensations. They will produce painful sensations. In summer, you will sweat. In winter, you will feel cold. How can you escape from the interaction of sense organs with sense objects? And therefore, vartanta iti dharayan. Jnani remembers that this is only the interaction of the sense organs with the sense objects. I am neither of them. Therefore, tattvavita yuktaha manyet. Tattvavit means jnani. Yuktaha means integrated person, alert person. And therefore, the yuktaha means I have to lead a alert life. If I am prone to leading a mechanical life, Bhagavad Geeta will not be available to me in times of need. And therefore, I should always remember, aham naiva kinchit karomi. I am never doing anything because I am always the higher I, the akarta. And Shankara says in his bhashyam that for a person who has studied Shastra for a length of time, so for a person who has done Shravanam and Nididhyasanam, all sadhana becomes irrelevant excepting for one, and that is Nididhyasanam. So Shankara gives an example. He says, he takes the example of a thirsty person in a desert. He sees mirage water in front of him. He mistakes it for real water. And Udaka is the water, right? This is the Udaka Buddhi, it is called. False idea that it is real water. And because of that false idea, what happens? He travels in the direction of the mirage lake. And after traveling for a long time, he sees that the lake is still as far away. And therefore, what does he conclude? He says it is not a real lake, it's a mirage. So what are the stages in this journey? First is Udaka Buddhi, the false knowledge. Then is the travel. That travel has to be, what is the false knowledge? Udaka Buddhi in our case, that I am the body, mind, sense complex. Then there is a travel. This travel is a sadhana. In our case, karma and upasana. and Shravanam Mananam. He understands that there is no water at all. And then Shankara says, Udaka Abhava Jnane Sati, after having known that there is no water there, will he continue his journey towards the mirage lake? What will he do? He will look for another source of water which is more likely to be real. In the same way, after Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Shravanam and Mananam, the sadhaka understands that Dharma, Artha, Kama, they are not real Purushas because they are all Udakas, false water, perishable, mithya like the false water. Previously, the sadhaka thought that moksha was something which was sadhya moksha, something to be attained in future. But here, Shastra itself is saying it is a adhyaropa moksha, superimposed moksha in the form of Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, which has to come in future. And something which has to come in future is subject to time. It's a moksha subject to conditions. What are the conditions? I should be doing karma yoga, I should be doing upasana yoga, I should be doing shravanam, I should be doing mananam, etc. And Shankara says a person who is ready for nididhyasanam, he can no longer look upon or work towards future moksha. If he is not working for moksha, he is no longer a sadhaka. So the person who is ready for nididhyasanam stops considering himself as a seeker. He says, I am not a sadhaka, and therefore there is no karma which I have to do, which is sadhana for me. Any karma I do for loka sangraham only. I do it for the welfare of the world only. And that is why Gaudapada says in a very beautiful work called the Mandukya Karika. He says, Na nirodho na chotpattihi, na buddho na cha sadakaha, na mumukshur na vaimuktaha, ittesham paramarthata. He says, Na nirodho na chotpattihi. There is no creation, there is no dissolution. Na buddho na sadakaha, na baddho na sadakaha. There is no one who is a baddha, who is bound. There is no one who is a sadaka, who is a sadaka. Na mumukshur na vaimuktaha. There is no mumukshu, and there is no vaimuktaha. There is no one who is got liberated also. Ityesha paramartha. This is the absolute truth. That there really is nothing because I am already Brahman. And this is the view of the Jnani, and this is what Krishna is pointing out to us over here. That do not think that you have to work for moksha. You are already free. Just claim that freedom, and that is what is called Jivan Mukti. There really is no such thing called Jivan Mukti. So with this, we'll stop. Any questions? Yes, Lavanaji.
Sorry, I hadn't lowered my hand earlier.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions?
Om Raviji,
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed this, but Unmishan, Nimishan, Api, what is the meaning of these
Closing
words?
and opening your eyelids.
Okay, thank you. I missed
Blinking, basically blinking. No.
blinking. Yes.
It's a karma. So even when I'm blinking, it is not I who blink. It is the body which blinks.
Right.
So essentially, the Jnanendriya and Karmendriya both are being talked
Both are
about.
covered. So both belong to the body only.
Mm.
And therefore, you have to keep yourself as separate from the body. Very, very profound verses. And this can be used for Nididhyasanam. At least you can commit them to memory and use at least 1 or 2 lines in a daily meditation.
Even when I'm doing everything, I'm not really doing it.
Yeah, of course, you should understand the meaning of I very clearly.
So eyes.
Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Thank
patience.
you.
Thank you.